Okay.
Okay. Hi guys. First and foremost, I thank you for logging in to my YouTube. And if you could, please subscribe down below. It all helps. But most of all, this month is stroke awareness. And I wanted you guys to know I had a stroke. I had a stroke January 4th, 2019. It's something that changed my life for the better. I know most people don't say it's for the better, but it changed my life, and it changed it drastically. Hold on a second.
Morning.
So, it changed my life for the better. A lot of people don't say that. I do, because my stroke made me focus differently than I used to. I was always on the go. I mean, I did a lot of things. I worked for Home Depot as a kitchen designer. I was a 4-H leader. I was an American Heritage Girls leader. I homeschooled my daughter. I was at church. I was in Operation Christmas Child. I mean, I was go, 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 go. But I did not realize I had AFib. My AFib caused my stroke. Some people know they have AFib. I did not. And it causes your heart to beat rapidly, and it threw a clot, and it traveled up to my brain. I believe I had a pre-warning to my stroke like 2 weeks before, because I went out to my utility room. And when I went out to my utility room, my balance and everything, I was at the washing machine, and the next thing I know, I was on the ground. My head hit against a bike, and I could not get up. And I think that was a pre-TIA, trans-ischemic attack, or a mini stroke. I think that's what happened. And then the night before I had my stroke, January 3rd, I had the worst headache of my life. I mean, it was worse than the migraine. I was throwing up. My husband went and got me ibuprofen. I took it, and it didn't help. So I laid down in my bedroom, and the next morning, I was talking to my mother-in-law, because I still had this headache. It was still there. And before I know it, I had my stroke. My mother-in-law was talking to me, and all of a sudden my speech got slurred. She thought it was my telephone. I thought it was my telephone. So I hung up the phone, and I texted her back, "I will call you right back." Well, I didn't call her right back, because at that time, I was having my stroke. I could not walk. I could not get up to call for help. I couldn't speak. My daughter was in the other room and stayed asleep. And I was in my bedroom having a stroke. I tried to get off my bed, and I fell onto the floor. And I laid there for over 6 hours. I laid there for over 6 hours, and I felt calm, because I felt God was with me. I know not everybody believes in God, but I felt He was with me through this whole time. And my daughter finally came in at like 2 in the afternoon, and I fell on the floor at like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And every minute you're having a stroke, your brain is dying. I have a a little picture of my brain from a CAT scan taken, where you can see my stroke was this big on my left side of my brain. That is why I also have aphasia, which is a communication disorder from my stroke. Because our communication center is the left side of our brain. Hold on. So my brain was dying. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had a stroke. I didn't know any of it, but I knew God was there. That's all I knew. My daughter came in the room at like 2:30 and saw me laying on the floor, and she thought I was dead. At that point, she came out of the room, came back in the room, Mom, Mommy, Mom. Went out of the room, came back into the room. She's crying. Mom, Mommy. She grabbed my phone and went out and called her dad. She says, I think Mom is dead. You need to come home. That still hurts when I say that, because she was only 11, and it messed with her mind as much as it messed with mine. Strokes can cause more than just the person having the stroke, a lot of grief and pain. She proceeded to call my husband. He came home. At that point, I don't know, he helped me up off the floor, and I don't know how they got me out to the car, but they got me out of my room, down the step, down the front step, out to the van, and got me to Homestead Hospital. When I was there, I was only there 15, 20 minutes max, and they had an ambulance that took me to Baptist, Maine in Miami. And when I was at Homestead, they did a CAT scan, I think, or an MRI or something, or was that Baptist, Maine, whatever. But they had to do an MRI and a CAT scan before they knew what they were working with. They wanted to know, did I have a hemorrhagic bleed, or did I have an ischemic stroke, which I had an ischemic stroke. What a hemorrhagic bleed is you get a dissection of an artery, which causes a stroke. An ischemic stroke is when a blood clot goes in and gets stuck in your brain, so blood can't flow through. I had an ischemic stroke from AFib. And the ischemic stroke, they needed to know which one they were working with, because if it was an ischemic stroke, they needed to know the time that this happened. My husband wasn't home, so he did not have an idea of the time. So they did not give me blood thinners. Usually they can give you blood thinners, I think it's within 4 or 6 hours of a stroke. Now, hold on, ma'am. So, hold on, I gotta get back my brain a second. So I was at Baptist, Maine. They decided that I had an ischemic stroke, and they were gonna do surgery, and they were running down the hall. My mother-in-law had gotten there and was trying to follow, and they says, we are going fast. And they took me right down the hall to where I needed to go. After they gave me, I don't know if they gave me a shot or something that calmed me down. Once I went in for my CAT scan, I was out. didn't wake up for like 3 days at the hospital in the emergency, in the ICU. My husband was there, and he says, honey, you had a stroke. I thought he was insane. I was only 48. 48. I thought only old people who are like 90 and above have strokes. I was thinking, I can't have had a stroke, but I thought I was talking too. I wasn't talking, but I thought I was talking, and I thought I was talking for over a month. I didn't know I had aphasia. I didn't know I had a stroke. So I had my stroke. I couldn't talk. I didn't know I had a stroke, but I did have a stroke. I was told I had a stroke. So basically, everything I've ever done, basically everything I'd ever done, I had to learn over. I had to learn to walk. I had to learn to talk. I had to learn to use my hands. Basically, I had to relearn like a 2-year-old. Actually, younger than a 2-year-old. When I went home from the hospital, I had to learn to read. I couldn't read. I could only read baby books, like cat, dog, ball. And I even had a hard time with that. I had a hard time with letters. I had a hard time with numbers. I was at the rehab center at Baptist, Maine, before it moved down to Homestead. I was at the rehab center, and I was there for a month. And so I was at the hospital a month. Yeah. Actually over a month, yeah. And this was in 2019. But since 2019, COVID hit. A year and a couple months after my stroke, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I learned there are people out there who've had strokes and have aphasia. I was like, because I learned, it took me 6-7 months to actually use my phone, because I couldn't use my phone, because I couldn't read it and I couldn't stand the sound of it. I had neurofatigue, and it's different than normal fatigue. I'm not just sleepy. The neurofatigue means if noises come, my brain shuts down. I can't understand what anybody is saying. I can't read what anyone is saying. I can't write what anybody is saying. And I couldn't speak. Do you know how isolating that is? And how terrifying that is? So I got an email from Lingraphica. Lingraphica was a group that helps people who have aphasia. They have tablets that can help them speak and stuff like that. And they had games on there. So I would go on to their game site. Like, they'll show a ball, a dog, a cat, and you had to match the word to the sentence. I was like, really basic. Well, one day they emailed me. I was like, oh, what did they email? So I looked at it. They said they were going to offer a 2-day class during COVID for aphasia people free of charge. It would be offered on Zoom. I didn't know how to use Zoom. Well, I learned. I had to learn. And that was crazy. I didn't know the the first thing about Zoom. So I practiced until I got it, and I went on Zoom and I met others with aphasia. And since then, I've grown. I've grown like crazy. I have learned to talk a lot more normal. I've learned how to use my hands, because I couldn't use my hand because my hands were crunched up to my side. It was like this. I have spasms on the right side. My stroke happened on my left. I have spasms on my right. The spasms went all the way to my feet. I had to learn how to drive again. I couldn't lift my hand up to adjust the mirror. Do you know? That's pretty insane. But I did learn. And I want people to know that the stroke community is there. And we are still within normal in our heads. We might not sound normal. We might not look normal. But we are normal. And I want people to know that stroke awareness needs to be acknowledged. So, do you guys have any questions?